for the next 12 years, you're going to have plenty of germs.
Yeah. At least there's no stain on your shoulder. I've been dying to do that for a long time. Is this on? Yeah, okay. Well, we'll start with the welcome everybody to the Board of Governors here in Chula Vista. We're delighted to have here. Thanks to Dr. Murillo and Southwestern College. And we look forward to having a wonderful two-day meeting here. I've already enjoyed the tour. I learned a few things that I didn't know. First, go Jags. And I got to do a few things I'd never done before. I'd never seen a turtle pond on a campus. I never saw solar chargers for phones outdoors, which was great. And of course, the biggest thrill for me, I'd never walked into a women's locker room before in the fantastic new athletic center. There were no other people there. We were entitled to do that. Jennifer's already cringing. She was worried about me. But before we go any further, we should call the roll.
Hildegard Aguinaldo.
Present.
Darius W. Anderson.
Present.
Arnaldo Avalos.
Here.
Jeffrey Baum.
Here.
Connie Conway. Amy Costa.
Here.
Tom Epstein.
Here.
Jolena Grande.
Here.
Pamela Haynes.
Here.
Jennifer Perry.
Here.
Mon Fawn.
Here.
Bill Rawlings.
Here.
Valerie Shaw. Blas Villalobos.
Here.
Alexander Walker Griffin.
Here.
Alexis Zaragoza.
Okay, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask Alexis to lead us.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, as most of you probably know, this is my first meeting as president, so I seek your forbearance if I really mess anything up more than I already have. I'm really glad that the first meeting is outside of Sacramento. It's great to go where the students are and where the real work is done, and we've really enjoyed our time here so far. We're looking forward to the rest of it. Before we go any further, though, I want to introduce three new members of the board. This is their first meeting: Blas Villalobos, Alexis Zaragoza, and Amy Costa. And I'd like each of them to say a few words to introduce themselves. Alexis?
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Alexis. I come from Modesto Junior College, so I am the incoming student member of the board. I am vice president of Modesto Junior College, and I also sit on our Pathways Implementation team, our academic senate, that kind of thing. And so I've been really involved in the school, and I just can't wait to start my term and continue it with all of you. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Amy Costa. It's really my honor and pleasure to be here. I just finished my role as the chief deputy for the Department of Finance in charge of the budget. I just started a new role as the deputy county administrator in Alameda County, which is 10 minutes from my home. So I'm looking forward to the shorter commute, especially given the 166-page agenda that I reviewed prior to today's meeting. I think it's a really important time in the community colleges right now under the Chancellor's leadership, with vision for success, with a new funding formula, with a new online college, and I'm just thrilled to be a part of it. And I look forward to working with all of you as well as the students and faculty as we embark on some of these really important endeavors. Thank you.
I don't know if this is working or not, but it's an omen. Hello, everybody. First and foremost, again, my name is Blas Villalobos. It truly is an honor to be here today. I come from the community college system, Long Beach City College, as well as Cal State Long Beach. So, needless to say, I'm a big supporter of our system. I'm a veteran, so I do come here with a mentality on how we can improve or help our veteran population and our dependents. I'm also on the Congressional Committee for the Readjustment of Veterans, so dealing with education, mental health, housing, employment issues, and transition in general. Also, doctoral student, so I'll finish in December with an emphasis on clinical work for vets.
Thank you. So I just wanted to make a few remarks here as I open my tenure here as president. I'm really honored to serve. I didn't realize immediately how much work it would be. It's really interfering with my retirement lifestyle, where I get up at 9, eat, work out, eat again. But it's been fun, and I'll try to fulfill the responsibilities well. My fellow board members, I'm very excited to be working so even more closely with you all. You bring such diverse expertise, and I just want everybody to know that I welcome your suggestions. I'm available anytime, and want your involvement as much time as you have to give to this. That we'll all do better. And most importantly, when I do mess things up, bail me out as quickly as possible. The Chancellor and the staff, I'm really impressed with the work they've been doing for the last couple of years, the passion, the conscientious dedication to students. I'm excited to work with all of you, and I'll try not to bother many of you on the weekends, though.
It's not working so far.
To the larger community college community, those of you in the audience, the classified staff, students, unions, advocacy groups, and foundations. We need your engagement. We really respect your expertise, and I look forward to a close interaction with all of you. And I really believe this is going to be a great campaign slogan for all of us in the community college system: "Stronger Together." That sounds like a winning slogan, but not many people got that. So anyhow, but what are my priorities? Basically, it's student success for all as quickly as possible, preparing students for the next step in their lives, and also to be very involved in their communities, to be community leaders, and to be good citizens of our state. How are we going to do this? I think it's been clear our vision for success is the roadmap. We want to surround students and faculty and staff with support they need in order to make the vision a success. We need to set aggressive goals, we need to measure results, and we need to learn from the outcomes of those results. And we hope as we do this that the BOG can be supportive, that it doesn't bog you down, that it will actually help move things forward. Finally, the online college, obviously huge challenges requiring great creativity and unprecedented speed, and all of us are going to have to work aggressively on that to make sure we get that done in the timeline that we're given. And the overriding principles for all of this are equity, social justice, and transparency. That's how we intend to operate, and we look forward to doing that. So finally, there's one announcement to make, and that is the California Workforce Pathways Joint Advisory Committee has a new member with Joseph Belansky leaving. Member Fawn has agreed to take that position. She joins Member Haynes and Member Shaw on that committee. With that, I'll turn it over to the Chancellor.
Thank you, Board President Epstein. First of all, I want to begin by thanking Southwestern College. It's been a treat to be here. This is absolutely a wonderful community. Thank you to President Murillo, the governing board, student leadership, the administration. You've been so welcoming, so thank you. I know how much of a pain it is to host a large contingent of interlopers like us, but it's great to be on a college campus again, so thank you. I also want to thank President Epstein. As you all know, previous board president Estolano was appointed to the University of California Board of Regents, and so that immediately caused us to dig deep into our bench and pull up our vice president into action. But no, he's been a tremendous asset to the staff and to the team to make this transition. So thank you, President Epstein, for your patience and for working with us and for making this transition very, very smooth. So thank you. I also want to personally welcome the new members of the Board of Governors. It's a pleasure to have all three of you on the board. Certainly, Alexis, it's great to have you on the board. Not only bringing your perspective as a student, as a Latina leader in your own respect, but representing the Central Valley. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking this appointment, and thank you for your leadership. Board Member Villalobos, I've had the pleasure of working with over the years. He is a tremendous advocate for veterans. I'll forgive him that he's from the Marine Corps, but nonetheless, it's a pleasure to have you, Blas. The board is much better because of his presence here, and veterans will have a true champion once again on the Board of Governors. And of course, Amy Costa, if there is anyone who has had more to do with the major initiatives that the Board of Governors has taken on, I don't know who that person is. Amy, working at the Department of Finance, has been involved in architecting most of what we are implementing here today. So it's going to be great to have your insight, to have your knowledge of the community college system, and especially supporting the implementation of all these initiatives through the Board of Governors. So thank you, Amy. A few updates. We are going to launch what we're calling a listening tour throughout the state. On the heels of a lot of activity over the last 6-7 months, a lot of changes that have been ushered in over the last 18 to 20 months. You know, we want to take the time and sit down with some of the campus leadership throughout the regions and hear from them how things are going, and have a chance to hear directly from faculty, staff, and the students on our campuses. So we reached out to the field, and several colleges have agreed to host us. We're going to begin the tour on October 15th at Shasta College in Redding. That community has seen tremendous struggles this summer, and it's a pleasure to be able to stop there on the first leg of this listening tour, because they have not only responded to their own crisis regarding the fires, but they have reached out to their community and really helped the community of Redding and the greater Shasta community respond to the devastating fires that have happened there. So we're going to start at Shasta. October 17th, we're moving on to San Joaquin Delta College in the Stockton area. Then on October 31st, on Halloween, so those of you who come in costume, we will be at Contra Costa College. November 1st, we will be at Compton College, so you can start helping us celebrate the Day of the Dead. And then we're moving on to Allen Hancock on November 7th in the San Luis Obispo area. And then we're heading to Coalinga after Thanksgiving on November 29th at West Hills College. So that's the tour so far. We will pick it up again when we get toward the spring of next year. But certainly, if any members of the board are interested and able to join, we'd be happy to have you. We'll make sure you have all the details. And so I look forward to visiting with all the campuses. Last couple of updates. One, I want to make sure and congratulate Executive Vice Chancellor Vontan Quinlivan. She was invited to be a fellow at the Institute for the Future in Silicon Valley. And so we've given her some time to do that and to help position the Chancellor's office for the future of work. So she's going to be doing a lot of work for us, really thinking through how to best position the Chancellor's office and the field with all the changes that are happening in the workforce. And this is great timing, given that we are going to be embarking on a gubernatorial transition. The future of work will be a big issue for either candidate for governor. We have to position the state for all the changes that are happening. And so I want to thank Executive Vice Chancellor Don Quinlivan for taking on this opportunity. And then the last thing I want to say is, wrapping up with where I began with Southwestern College, for those of you who have read the Vision for Success, equity is a major driving component of the Vision for Success. This college exemplifies what we're trying to accomplish statewide. This college serves a tremendous community, a community of color, a community that serves undocumented students, a community that serves first-generation students. That's what we're all about in the California community colleges, supporting students who have come to our colleges for a better life, for a better future, and for many of them are the first in their family to embark on this journey. And we take great pride in welcoming every single one of those students, regardless of where they come from, regardless of what papers they have with them. They are welcome in the California community colleges, and we are going to make every effort possible to help them succeed as quickly as possible. That is going to be our driving mantra in the system office. And so it was without question that we chose a college like Southwestern College to begin the fall and to begin on this journey as we continue to implement all of the changes that we've embarked on, to implement the Guided Pathways framework, to focus the Guided Pathways framework on equity, to help our students be placed in the highest level math and English course possible that they deserve, to work with community partners to implement College Promise, and to provide our students with the financial aid that they deserve so that they can pay for the cost of attendance. So it's a privilege to be here, and I thank the students and the administration for welcoming us here today. That's all I have.
Okay, great. So let's move on to the to item 1.1, the board meeting minutes. Anybody want to have a motion on that?
Move. I move.
Member
that we
Anderson
approve the
moved.
minutes.
Second.
Second.
That was fast.
But, Deputy Chancellor, do you have anything you want to say?
No, that was wonderful. We have a very aggressive agenda, so
Yeah.
thank you for that.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, moving on. We're going to take an item out of order now. We're going to go to item 4.1, which is the appointment of an interim vice president of the board, who is already seated next to me here, but
Yes.
the general counsel, Forestier, would you like to?
Thank you, President Epstein, and Interim Vice President Pamela Haynes. I think the idea here is to just take the mystery out of the transition of power that has happened since our last board meeting. And effective August 8th, former President Estolano resigned her position to take on her new role with the University of California Regents. Under the policies and procedures of the board, the vice president automatically becomes the president. There's no formal action required for that transition to happen. It just happens. And so we have President Epstein. The president then has vacated his vice presidential position and has the authority to appoint a vice president from, an interim vice president from among the members of the Board of Governors. And as of effective today, he has done so in Vice President Haynes. And that's basically it. One further question that has arisen is whether there is any impact on service of in subsequent terms. So the board policies do have a term limit, which is 2 terms of 1 year of elected office. So the service over the course of the next couple of months until November, when there's a new slate that becomes effective in January, those are not elected terms and so have no impact on the term limits under the board policies and procedures. So that is my presentation on this item. Any questions?
Okay, so that is an information item. It's not a an interim vice president. Okay. Oh,
I just wanted
Member
to,
Brown.
I wanted to praise the wisdom of the president in his selection of our vice president. It's been great to have Member Haynes on this board, and she brings exceptional experience both as a locally elected trustee, but also a terrific board member on the Board of Governors. So thank you for appointing her.
I echo that. I was about to make that same comment.
Thank you all very much for your support and your confidence. I'll try to not embarrass you at all.
Okay, so now I'm going back to the agenda item 2.1, approval of contracts and grants. Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez.
All right, President Epstein, board members, Chancellor Oakley. Item 2.1 presents the approval of contracts and grants for this September meeting. Since we had a few changes, we went ahead and handed out a brand new copy. We have some copies for the public in the back table. However, if you are looking at your old agenda, the only change is the removal of the first contract on there. The reason for the change is that the fiscal agent rescinded their application to become a fiscal agent for the Umoja project. The expectation is that the Chancellor's office will return back to this board in November with a new presentation for the Umoja project. Any questions on why the change was made? Otherwise, I will now be referring to the new numbers based on the copy that was handed out. Okay, so that leaves us with 11 contracts and grants. And since we have a few new board members, I thought I would go over the rules and do very high level on each of them. So the procedures and standing orders of the Board of Governors require the Chancellor to receive prior approval before entering into a contract or a grant, or even an amendment of a contract or a grant. Before entering into that, if it exceeds $100,000, if it exceeds something that is longer than 3 years in duration, or with respect to consulting services, if it is over $50,000. So the new number 1 is in the Academic Affairs Division. It is a non-competitive renewal grant for the Academic Senate to continue their work on the Course Identification System, the CID system. This was earmarked in the 2018-19 budget bill, and it exceeds the $100,000 threshold, so that's why it is in front of you. Item number 2 is also a non-competitive grant to the Academic Senate to fund their general work, so statewide meetings, as well as participating in advisory groups and committees. This is the Academic Senate provides a lot of support and consultation to the Board of Governors and works closely with the Chancellor's office. And the $1 million grant was also earmarked in the 2018-19 budget. And this one, again, is in front of you because it exceeds the $100,000 threshold. Item number 3 is a new non-competitive contract to the Academic Senate to support the development and expansion of the Open Educational Resource Program, the OER. The $2 million was in the 2018-19 budget bill, And the Academic Senate will work to expand access to high-quality teaching, learning, and research resources. That includes everything from full courses online to materials, modules, and videos. It's in front of you because it exceeds the $100,000 threshold, as well as it is longer than 3 years in duration. The last item under the Academic Affairs Division is item number 4. It is a new non-competitive grant to support the California Online Education Initiative, OEI. The $35 million were earmarked in the 2018-19 budget in an effort to integrate the fully online college by helping our 114 brick-and-mortar colleges expand their online offerings. Foothill De Anza will serve as the fiscal agent to provide competitive grants to our colleges, who will then use the funds to expand online course offerings. This is in front of you because it exceeds the $100,000 threshold. That concludes the Academic Affairs Division items, but the next 2 items are related to the DII Division, which is our Digital Innovation and Infrastructure Division. Item number 5 is a new non-competitive grant to help us stabilize, assess, and enhance current applications for our students and faculty, what we call our end users. This grant is in alignment with the direction provided by this board back in January. So Executive Vice Chancellor Von Tonquilliman made a presentation, and in May, our Executive Vice Chancellor Von Tonquilliman, as well as our visiting senior executive, Omid, did a presentation where we presented 42 different projects that worked in isolation and were very disjointed. So this specific grant is trying to consolidate all of that and help us move forward with an aligned vision for our data and technology. This is an RFA that begins this work, and Butte, Glen, and Chabot will lead that work. I should note, however, that this original RFA bid was put out as a competitive bid initially, but due to the low RFA interest as well as low scores, the strategy was changed to be a non-competitive bid. I think this is something that this board has talked about, right? There's very few colleges that become experts and can actually do this work on our behalf. Item number 6 is a new non-competitive grant as well, connected to this division. This specific grant is to develop our data repository, the CCC data lake, and it is exactly what it sounds like. It's going to be like our site for all data, what we are moving into. In human words, I asked my staff to explain it to me in human words, and this grant will help us modernize our approach. So in the past, we focused on historical data systems, right? Using very old data to make decisions. Our hope is that the CCC data lake will look forward and be able to use real-time data to drive decisions for students from colleges, districts, and of course the Chancellor's office. Butte, Glen, San Joaquin, and Rancho will continue the work of really engaging with our colleges and figuring out how do we design something that works for them, how do we then deploy it, how do we train and transition that data and work closely with the colleges to make sure that really big data sets have governing procedures, and how do you aggregate that data? So that is the work that item number 6 will move forward. Item number 7 is in the Student Services and Special Programs Division. It is a non-competitive grant to administer subcontracts and invoices and reimbursements. In the year 2001, the Board of Governors authorized the Chancellor's office to take up to 3% of each college's financial aid allocation to fund special projects, such as professional development convening, state-coordinated efforts, and to fund specific strategic financial aid initiatives. We've been using that same process, and so this item, it just selects a fiscal agent that will then reimburse the subcontractors for the work that they are doing statewide. The grant is in front of you because it exceeds the $100,000 threshold. Item number 8 is a new set of grants issued through a competitive process to establish and expand on-campus Veterans Resource Centers. Item number 8 was a bit delayed, so what we've done is, there's 2 items, 8 and 9 are related. These are the funds that were in the 2018-19 appropriation for this purpose, so what we've gone ahead and done in item number 8 is we appropriated grants for those who had applied in 2017-18. And in item number 9, what you see is the final $4.9 million for that same purpose to new additional grantees. 2 more items to go through. The last one is item number 10 in the Workforce and Economic Development Division. Item number 10 is an amendment. It is an amendment to an interjurisdictional exchange, an IJE, which allows the Chancellor's office to bring staff and faculty as experts into the Chancellor's office.
I'll get it at the end.
The IJE is an amendment for Dr. Lynn Shaw for an additional 15 months to work in our office in the strong workforce development efforts and programs. She's been instrumental to that work, and it is in front of you because it exceeds the $100,000 threshold. And then lastly, item number 11 is also a part of the 2018-19 state budget. It is a part of having the Chancellor's office operate and move forward the K-12 strong workforce programs. And it is related to another item in your agenda, item 2.7. And so if you'd like, we can separate that item out of the vote, and then we can have Dr. Lynn Shaw come up and present on that item, and then you can present on, then you can vote on this specific grant.
I think that makes sense. So, so we should go now. You'll explain item 2.7?
Yes, or I
Okay.
can take questions on items 1 through 10,
Oh, okay.
and we can take a vote, and then we can do a presentation.
Okay. Any questions, Member Rawlings?
Thank you. Two questions, I think primarily on number 5 and 6. So on number 5, a little concerned that we had to move it to a non-competitive grant. I can kind of understand the reasons why. The question I have, and maybe concern I have, is are we expecting this to get us to the finish line on this, or is this really ground level work that is building to create a platform that allows the integration of other services and not necessarily consolidates all those, 42 systems, whatever? And then second, if that's the case, if this is kind of that fundamental work, who and how are we getting consulting on what standards we're using for that platform that we're moving these to, right?
So from my understanding, I mean, it's going to take a lot of work, and I'd like to invite Omi to come up and help me out on this one, but it's going to take a lot of work, right? We're essentially consolidating 42 different grantees and contractors.
Right.
The beginning of selecting these 3 and 2 additional colleges to help us with this work is really an effort to help them communicate with each other as well as aligning the work. But I'll let Omi add to that.
That's an excellent point. Good afternoon, everyone. To answer your question, I think one of the things we need to do is the data is stored at different locations around the state right now, run by different memorandums of understanding between districts and different entities. So the next 15 months' work of what you see here is to bring that data across the different boundaries, the political boundaries, and aggregate them in one place. Subsequently, we have a number of projects that we've tagged, and what we're going to do with all that data that we pull together, we can't act on that until all the data comes to one place.
And then I'll have a follow-up
Member
on
Anderson?
number
Oh,
6.
you're still, okay.
For number 6, we have those 3 contracts, and they were covered briefly on what each of those is for. But I wonder, can you explain how those different colleges are communicating and across their different scopes, right? So each has a different scope of work, but then we're expecting them to create kind of an integrated product at the end, right? So on really both 5 and 6, you explained number 5, I think, already. What about number 6?
So number 6, a large amount of data that we have is at the tech center, specifically. And that data needs to move to a central repository, the CCC data lake, somewhere in the Amazon cloud. So one grant, as you saw, is for Butte to move that data. Second really large amount of data is at CalPass. CalPass Plus also includes all our launch board, all the data dashboarding that we do. That data needs to move. And that data is governed by many, many MOUs with all the K-12 districts and colleges. So it's a very highly political work that needs to be done. It has to be done by the entity that's established those relationships and established the MOUs. It can't be done by another entity. So the third grant is for a consolidator, somebody who actually helps us design the infrastructure where all this data is going to go. and sort of plays the middleman in all the data aggregation that comes together. We felt that it was better to have a separate party do that collaboration and integration versus one of these parties doing that work.
Thank you.
Part of this is technical, just moving data. The other part is heavily political and nuanced that needs to be managed as well.
Yeah, very good.
Member Anderson?
Quick question, as it relates to those systems, are we also looking now at the new data that will eventually come online with the 115th college? And will that data and that information that we gather going forward be integrated in with this system?
Excellent question. So that's still under consideration. So we don't want to make any decisions on the systems and data for the online college, but we want to be ready for that data if we decide to consolidate. And I'm going to go look at the Chancellor if you want to add anything to that, please. But
It will certainly, it is certainly the expectation that that data will also reside with the system-wide data. But of course, since we haven't employed the founding members of the online college, we want to give them every opportunity to work with us on how to best move that data. But it will be the expectation that data will, any data, student data collected will be integrated in our metrics, and we will report that data as we would for any of the other 114 colleges.
So have the individuals that you've sole sourced to in these particular contracts been talked to about that? And are they prepared if there is an expansion of the services?
And I'll let Omi talk. Regardless of the 115th college, we are going to have more colleges come online anyway. There's Madera is working toward bringing on a college. There's a number of other communities that we will eventually have more. So we need to build the capacity to bring those colleges on as they're created.
our language has been very general in terms of all California community colleges, which will include 115th and any other new colleges will come online.
Okay, Member Avalos?
Yeah, Dr. Gonzalez, it's actually, I want to talk about point 8 and 9. So when I look at the breakdowns, for example, 18-053-101 and Alan Hancock, how do we come up to these numbers, right? I mean, I look at 199,792. I mean, can you give me a sense of what's happening there? I mean, some are rounded great in 100,000, 200,000, but some are, down to the 99, 97. There's a lot of data or a lot of specifics there, but do we have a sense of why it's not rounded up or rounded down? I mean, how does this happen?
What item was this?
Well, it's actually
All of them?
So it's 8, right? So we're talking about student services, special programs, and there's not page numbers. I can't reference the page number, but it's really 101, Alan Hancock.
Page 21, I think.
Vice Chancellor Moore is going to join us for that question.
Hello. Colleges were able to apply for these Veterans Resource Center grants, and these odd amounts are the dollar amounts they applied for.
So they came up with the numbers.
They could apply for up to 200,000, and they came up with this. There's a budget that is submitted with their application, and so these are their numbers.
Okay. Interesting. All right, thanks.
Member Fahn?
I think that's called psychological pricing.
I guess so.
I do have one question on item 4. It used to be item 5, but and that's $35 million going for the online education to the OEI. And if I recall correctly, this was added on at the latter iteration in the budget discussion a few months ago. Has there been more thoughts given to how this money would be spent and how will they be distributed to the 114 colleges and what kind of programs and things like that? I know that the money just came and we're now releasing $35 million basically to spend, and I'm curious as to actual programs and what it looks like.
So this is releasing so that we can get a fiscal agent who will then go and administer a process to select colleges to do this work. So that's what's in front of you. Our Executive Vice Chancellor Hope is leading that work. I don't know if she'd like to come up and add anything that she's been discussing with the fiscal agent.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for the question. So one of the things that we heard when we were having so much dialogue about the online college is that other colleges wanted the opportunity to also build and expand their online programming, in particular as it relates to career technical education. So that's one of the areas that we're looking to emphasize with that $35 million, but we also want to incorporate it within the existing exchange structure so that, as Dr. Porzanjani was speaking to, we're not creating yet a third infrastructure, but we're asking colleges who want to do some innovation and experimentation and expansion in online career technical education to join the systems that we've created through the OEI.
So it says here that it will be distributed to the 114 colleges?
No, they will
directly?
be applying for those funds and resources and needing to demonstrate that they've got relationships with workforce and also relationships in their community to support and fortify the success of that career technical education programming.
Thank you. I don't know if it's too premature to request this, but since it's such a substantial amount of dollars, perhaps later next year or something like that, if we could see the outcome of the activities pertaining to this expenditure, I think that'd be great for us. Thank you.
Member Aguinaldo?
I have a question regarding item number 3, which was formerly item number 4, the contract for OER. I had the pleasure of attending an OER and ZTC conference, and I know as well as Vice Chancellor Alice Perez. We talked a little bit about the availability and expiration of funding for both ZTC and OER, ZTC being zero textbook cost. Can you explain where this particular grant fits into the funding for both of those initiatives and what the total pool of money looks like?
I'd like to ask Vice Chancellor Perez to come and answer the question because she and the Academic Senate are working closely on that particular approach.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, President Epstein, Vice President Haynes. Okay. I'm inviting up John Stanskis, who's the president of our Academic Senate. This grant was applied for and awarded to the Senate to work in tandem and close collaboration with the Chancellor's Office and our own OER initiative and the work that we're doing. And so I would invite John to be able to speak to, there are 4 key areas where we're intersecting with our goals with this initiative. So do you want to speak to those goals, or do you want me to? Okay. So there's 4 areas, and I'll outline them for us right now. The first is that this is going to be definitely a collaboration. One of our deans, LeBaron Woodyard, is working very closely with Michelle Pilati on the statewide Senate executive team. And what we're working on right now is that we need to coordinate the ZTC grants. So you were at the zero textbook costs part of that seminar as well, and Jolene was there as well. So we need to coordinate those zero textbook cost initiatives so that we're not working in a duplicative process, but that we're working in an extended process together. So that's one key area where we are going to be collaborating. The second is we need to look at our online educational resources gaps right now for our associate degrees for transfer programs. So that's the second way, a key area where we're going to be collaborating together. Our goal is that all of our ADTs, our the associate degree of transfer programs, actually have an OER, they have an OER component to them. So that's going to be crucial. The third area is that we really need to look at our high demand CTE, career and technical education program pathways, and make sure that a very vast majority of them have online educational resource components to them. So the funding for the Academic Senate piece is to have them come on board and really work with us in tandem to make our OER programs more robust and efficacious. And the last key area that we're really focusing on together is we want to make sure that we take a repository that's already in play and make sure that it's actually more viable and that it's added to. And it's the Cool for Ed site that already has a number of artifacts on that repository. And rather than creating an entirely new repository, we're going to be working to make that one more robust, effective, inclusive, and viable. Anything you want to add, John?
We're supposed to say good afternoon, President Epstein,
We
Vice
did.
President Haynes. I didn't, though.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
And Chancellor Oakley, thanks for the question. So the only thing I would add is that we've had lots of initiatives and fits and starts around open educational resources for students. And really part of the effort that I think we're engaged in is bringing all of those strands together and making sure they're working cohesively and not duplicative of efforts, and that we have a structure within which all faculty and students can access open educational resources that can be shared across the system as efficiently as possible.
Any other questions?
Member Costa?
I just have an observation as the new person here on this particular section, and I would bifurcate the contracts between those that are really enacting what was in the Budget Act. They're non-competitive, we're identifying a fiscal agent, and there are some others. And I think it's really helpful, and I'm going to quote our president, to have measurable results. And in our goals section, I really do think that we should be looking at these contracts in terms of vision for success. When we're talking about financial aid outreach, we should be able to measure how many students are actually touched, how many get the College Promise program. And so going forward, my request would be that when we see these contracts, the goals have metrics behind them so that when contracts come back to us for renewal, and I especially thought this in item number 1, so perhaps for November we can think about this, we have some assurances that our goals are being met in an appropriate manner by the contracts that have been awarded.
Member Walker Griffin?
So this is in regards to item number 8, the student services and special programs. Okay, yeah, it's that. In regards to the veteran services. So I was reading it, and I understand this is a new grant, so there's still stuff in the works of how it can be worked out. But is there any sort of criteria that schools have to meet to actually say, like, okay, this is what we'll do, considering some schools may have a low veterans population? And are there anything mandatory that's laid out, for example, mental health services, since a lot of service members are returning home now?
Great question, yes. And so it's new in the sense that it's new funding that's going out from this year, but they had applied last year. We didn't have enough funding to give them out in the prior year. So I will let Vice Chancellor Moore explain a little bit more about the process and the requirements.
Part of the requirements in the legislation that and in the Budget Act that created the funding was that the system would work with the legislature, Department of Finance, and with institutions to develop a set of standards that colleges would have to meet. So we took, part of the reason why it took so long to issue the 17-18 grants is because of that desire to get a lot of stakeholder comments on what those standards would be. So the standards are in there. I can't list the standards for you, but yes, they would include the items that you listed.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Member Anderson, round 2.
Yes, technical question to play on Board Member Costa's question. The $35 million in 4 that was alluded to earlier, is the intent there that that will integrate then in with the 115th campus? So are we actually allocating this in advance of, the build out and the formation of then the 115th campus?
So let me take that question because, and certainly Board Member Costa has a lot of background on how this happened, but during the deliberations over the 115th college, several colleges, system leaders expressed a desire to have funds allocated for their own innovation in online education, particularly around supporting the workforce. And so during the final budget negotiations, there was money set aside to allow for that to happen. So that innovation can occur through the existing infrastructure. and those resources are for that purpose. That is separate from where the online college is going. The online college will be focused on implementing a competency-based education model. Certainly, through these funds, local colleges have the opportunity to experiment with the CBE model, but we are going to be working with the Online Education Initiative and others to ensure that there is some connection to the work that's already going on so that every campus is not recreating the wheel. But the way it was allocated at the end, it was certainly one of the requests from the legislature to allow for colleges to have this opportunity.
Yeah. And again, I understand that absolutely, but having been involved in a number of implementations at the statewide level, just because they're being implemented by the individual campuses doesn't necessarily mean it's right. I'm a little apprehensive about approving $35 million and then spending, the dollars on the online campus and not having any integration or even having our CEO yet. I understand that the individual campuses need that money, but I'm concerned about the tracking and pacing and how you line up the objectives of both of those priorities.
If I can make a comment related to that and all of the other non-competitive grants, because they all are very similar in nature of how they came to this board. So we are apprehensive as well. What we're doing right now is creating a fiscal agent, so we have not actually put money out to the field yet. We have an opportunity to work with the Online Education Initiative leadership and to create some of that alignment. We have a history of, in some cases, being seen as a pass-through on some of these budget items that were approved by the legislature. I personally disagree with that point of view. I think the Chancellor's office and the Board of Governors is responsible for every dollar that's appropriated by the legislature. And so I appreciate the comments that Member Costa made, because I do think that we should be empowered and required by the Board of Governors to create a level of expectation for every dollar that's allocated. And so that is the direction we would like to go. We're in some respects working backwards now, because there's once the item was approved in the budget, there was an expectation by some folks in the field that that money would immediately get out there to them. But if it's the direction of the board that we ensure that it is aligned with the goals and expectations of the Board of Governors, and we will take the time to make sure that that's done.
Member Bauer. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, again, it's my feeling that we will be accountable as a board, because in our dual roles, I'm sure we will have to vote on this tomorrow or whatever else. And I just think that we really need to think about what is the accountability, and to make sure that we're not wasting these very important dollars, and that the campuses, if they're using them, and then we have somebody that comes in 6 months from now as the executive director and says, no, we want to go in a different direction, will we have wasted X number of dollars?
I will say that there is a difference. The resources that we are choosing a fiscal agent for will go to support ongoing online education initiatives that are in the pipeline already. So we wouldn't be creating necessarily something new, but we can reinforce the alignment with the Vision for Success. Those funds are separate than the $120 million that were allocated for the online college. Those efforts should be aligned, and of course it's going to take time for the online college to get going. But I think what we can do is working through the Online Education Initiative, which was established separately from the online college, to ensure that there is continued alignment between the efforts around creating the competency-based education model for the online college and any efforts that are going to be created at the 114 colleges.
Member Baum.
My question also builds on the good questions from Member Costa and Member Anderson. In that, when Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez presented, said we had to sole source these contracts because there was no capacity. Nobody else had the experience or the resources to implement that within the district. And so, and this is for the benefit of also the new members, why haven't we developed that capacity within the Chancellor's office to execute these programs that are aimed at a statewide system? Is it that we don't, why don't we have the capacity at this, or is there something and a regulatory system that requires us to do that?
So the primary driver has been how Prop 98 funds flow through the system. There's also been a philosophical driver. The regulatory driver is that the Chancellor's office cannot directly appropriate Prop 98 funds directly. So these funds have to find a fiscal agent of one of the campuses to be able to execute those dollars. So that's why we have the multitude of fiscal agents. As you can imagine, that is very challenging when you're trying to drive system-wide solutions, particularly technology solutions. We're trying to consolidate a lot of the IT projects, but we're still faced with this challenge. And so much of the initial funds around IT were centered at Butte College, and the Tech Center was created there. So very few other colleges have that capacity. Now, not to say anything, give anybody the impression that we don't believe that Butte College has done a great job, but it does create challenges for the Chancellor's office. There's always one or two arm's lengths that we have to work through to ensure that there is coordination and that there is scalability. And you know, I think philosophically, the Board of Governors has taken a more direct role in statewide initiatives. And we are going to work with this next administration, the next leadership of the Department of Finance, see if there's any other ways that we could allocate funds that allow us the opportunity to have more access, more oversight, direct oversight to ensure accountability.
Member Anderson.
Can I ask a technical question, Chancellor? From the standpoint, because we wear dual hats and we are all trustees,
Yes.
once we take this off, we then have the ability as trustees to go ahead and allocate those dollars, correct?
So, yes, and we will get much deeper into those conversations as you don the hat of the Board of Trustees.
Yep.
But it is one of the nuances as to how the online college was created. It could not have been created directly through the authority of the Board of Governors, so we had to create a district. Now that the Board of Trustees and the online college is a district in statute, you can directly allocate Prop 98 funds. So this would give us some options in the future of how we think about allocating funds or choosing fiscal partners, fiscal agents. So that is something that we can and should consider as we go forward.
May I have a concluding comment if I'm the last one to speak on this?
You may, although I'm going to get the concluding comment, but you can have one.
But my concluding comment on
before
this,
we do that,
well,
though, I want to welcome Member Shaw and note for the record that she is now present.
Thank you.
My comment, whether concluding or not, is another question. But since the $35 million in the legislation is for the OEI, it needs to be treated separately from the online bucket of $120 million. And so my initial question was not so much of not spending the money or holding the money, but I want a more elaborate explanation of the programs that would be funded by these dollars. And that was really the intent of my question, because if I recall correctly, once the legislature sets aside a certain amount in the budget, it is directed toward that particular effort or that particular agenda item.
And that is correct. I will say that the Board of Governors is the appropriating authority, and outside of any requirements the legislature put on those funds, the Board of Governors is responsible for how those funds are allocated and how they're tied to specific outcomes. So that part is a responsibility of the Board of Governors.
Just
Member
to clarify
Costa.
in this item, because as the Chancellor pointed out, I was there. I think to get to Board Member Anderson's point, and the Chancellor can correct me if I'm wrong, we can still name the fiscal agent for the OER, and in that agreement, we can specify that we want to make sure that fiscal agent is continuing to talk to us to make sure, similar to the zero textbook degree and online educational resource conversation, that we're not duplicating efforts. Because they are parallel programs, and that was just part of how the deal came down. But I think that we could have a safety valve to make sure that we're not, duplicating the online materials either at the district level or through the new online college.
And
All right.
one more?
Well, can I ask
Sure.
Member Costa?
Go ahead.
Can you clarify that? From the standpoint, just from a technical standpoint, if we allocate the 35 million and then they're distributed to the individual campuses, and the new CEO comes in and then they dictate, at some point those dollars will run out, and I assume the new campus, the 15th, then working with the individual campuses, will become the new funding source for dollars going forward.
I don't know if I would assume that yet. I mean, right now, basically, you have this pot of money for campuses to develop their materials if they want. Separate and apart, you have a pot of 120 that's for the new college. 20 million is ongoing. I think, regardless, we're going to have this period of time where duplication may occur. But I think for the action item before us, as long as we make it clear that when our leadership gets in place, they have the ability to make sure campuses aren't duplicating the materials we're creating, we should be okay. It's very similar to OER in the fact that there is the possibility for some duplication, but we have, just by naming the fiscal agent, I don't think that gets us into that world.
So as you can see,
Can I make one clarifying point?
Yeah, sure.
It's not so much of the 114 colleges duplicating the online, it's probably the reverse, the online college not duplicating the 114 colleges, if that makes sense.
Okay. So as you can see, it's my first agenda item, and I've already completely lost control of the board. I did want to pile on here a little bit, starting with Member Costa's comment. When I was looking at items 2, 4, and 5 in particular, I felt that there were really no deliverables, no metrics, no way to really understand if these were being successful or not. And I don't know if that's because you short circuit what's actually in the overall proposal, or if those just don't exist even in the larger proposal. Could you answer that?
I think we have the commitment from the Academic Senate to develop those metrics. As you know, since I came on board, the presentation of this item has evolved. We went from providing you just numbers and dates to being able to provide you some more information. That type of work is great to hear that is the expectation of this board. What you have in front of you is the initial contract. Our office still can engage in further conversations and add additional requirements and actual metrics and deliverables.
Okay, just let me add a few specific comments on that. I mean, we had a presentation on the CID a few months ago, and I made a point then that I would like to see some specific evidence that we're achieving what we need to achieve in order to align these courses so that ADTs and other transfer opportunities can be achieved. And I think it would help very much to have some numerical targets of how many courses are being reviewed, how many have been aligned with the state university system, and so forth. On number 4, similarly, this talks about identifying gaps and facilitating adoption, but on the OER. But what are the specific outcomes that we're trying to achieve here? How many courses do we want to have available to students at no cost? In what areas? And so I think we need much more specific metrics for how we're doing on the OER and the CID. And then finally, on number 5 that we've been talking about, I think we could also, this has been kind of beaten to death, but we need to know, it says, it has goals like lead to short-term industry value certificates or expansion of online offerings, but diversity of online offerings. But we need to really, kind of get a lot more specific on exactly what we're trying to achieve, because otherwise we have no way of knowing if this has been a success. And with that, I think we have some.
We have 2 speaker cards. The first one is John Stanskas. And a reminder that 3 minutes, but John, I'll give you a little pass for a couple of seconds over.
Thank you. I just had a few things to talk about the budget. First of all, I want to make sure that we're talking about the OEI initiative separate from the OER initiative. The OER initiative was the one that appeared in the budget from the Academic Senate around open educational resources that are used by faculty to support students and to lower the cost of textbooks and ancillary materials that are often required of students and present a barrier to students. And so that is a separate issue from the OEI, which is the Online Education Initiative, which is a consortium of colleges offering online courses that had a 5-year review in the past to establish a framework to identify benchmarks about quality in online instruction, to ensure that, to work out all of the bugs that continue to appear in terms of helping the student who takes a course on the exchange make sure that credit is seamless and that enrollment is seamless. And this is the year that that rolls out, and I believe it's 20 more institutions are waiting to expand and join the exchange to ensure even more courses are available to students. It was targeting transfer level to begin with, so associate degree for transfer coursework that perhaps a small rural college can only offer once every 2 years in the program, or not at all. They don't have the students to come to class and take that last semester course that's required for an ADT. But if another college or that college can offer that course in the online exchange, then students can enroll in that course, the course fills, and the students can complete their ADT no matter where they are in the state. And so the OEI expansion and the additional $35 million hopefully is going to support that. How that interfaces with the
30 seconds.
15th college is up to the 115th college, right? That's a separate issue from this in particular. We want all of our institutions to be integrated and to share resources and to learn from each other in a way. And so I think it's important to clarify those things. The last thing I will say is there was a work plan developed that's much more detailed than this, that I believe the Chancellor's office has access to, both around CID and the work of the Academic Senate. And so I'm not sure how the mechanism by which that gets shared, but we did work together to identify measurable outcomes to address that issue, President Epstein.
Okay, thank you.
Our next speaker is Teresa Aldridge.
Good afternoon, President Epstein, Vice President Pamela Haynes, Board of Governor members, President Oakley, colleagues, and guests. My name is Dr. Teresa Aldridge, and I am speaking here on behalf of the Emoji Community Education Foundation. The Emoji Community serves as an academic and professional development resource for colleges wishing to better support underrepresented students by providing culturally relevant pedagogy responsive to the needs of African ancestry students. Our mission is to close the achievement gap through fostering positive cultural identity and thereby increasing retention and graduation and transfer rates. Emoji has been around since 2007, and we currently serve more than 10,000 students in 62 California community colleges. After being in existence for 8 years as a grassroots organization with no state funding, the Emoji community was awarded its first $1 million in student equity funds in 2015. The funding allowed Emoji to hire staff, expand the number of affiliated programs, and build transfer partnerships with four-year institutions. It is important to note that the Chancellor's Office staff suggested that the Emoji become a nonprofit organization in order to receive ongoing funds. In July 2017, the state legislature awarded Emoji no less than $2.5 million in ongoing funding. Today, your board has pulled an important item from your contracts and grants agenda because we have been told that Chabot-Las Positas Community College District has decided to not continue serving as our fiscal agent. We want your record to reflect that we have not received any communication from Chabot-Las Positas about this decision, nor why they would make such a decision at this time. We were stunned and we feel blindsided by this last-minute decision, just as we were preparing to issue RFA grant awards to the Emoji-affiliated programs that would provide direct student support. Emoji has suffered continuous setbacks and such scrutiny over the years because of the lack of transparency and consistent policy set by the Chancellor's Office for managing our funds. But I assure you that our organization is resilient and one that can stand in truth and honor. We are impeccable in our work and our service to the colleges and the students we serve, and we will remain steadfast and diligent in carrying out our mission. We stand ready to meet with Executive Vice Chancellor Hope and Vice Chancellor Perez to begin the dialogue about how we can move forward with clear expectations so the Board of Governors can continue its work on supporting exemplary programs such as the Emoji community.
30
we are
seconds.
hopeful for the expedient resolution so that we may proceed with our plans to provide funds to our affiliated Emoji programs. As articulated in our value statement, our students are our highest priority in community. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe Member Shaw would like to say something.
Yes, first of all, let me apologize for being late. I've experienced high blood pressure in this summer, and it was sky high, and I had to meditate in order to get in the car to drive here from LA. But in coming here, when I was excited to see the Emoji contract, then I sort of whispered to my colleagues, they told me that it had been withdrawn, and it was withdrawn because of the fiscal agent bowed out, and I think that this is kind of late. How could this happen?
That is a question for the fiscal agent. The fiscal agent chose not to continue, and it is our responsibility to pull the item if we don't have a fiscal agent.
I understand that, but why would they do this at such a late date?
I cannot answer that for Chabot-Las Positas. That is,
I know they just lost their chancellor,
that,
and
it would be inappropriate for me to answer on behalf of Chabot-Las Positas why they pulled out, but they did notify us. We could not move the item forward at that point. We contacted as many people as we could. Obviously, the item was on the agenda. We had every expectation that you would act on it today, but it was pulled at the relatively last minute.
my goodness. Well, I just hope that we can really fast track this because the Emoji is just such an important program and it helps thousands of students. And
Yes.
they've worked hard to get to this point, and to be blindsided like this is certainly shame on Chabot.
Well, I hesitate to cast any shame on Chabot-Las Positas. They may have their very good reasons why they pulled out of this, and I would hope.
I'm talking, they very might be, but the timing, I'm
Well,
talking about the
yeah,
timing,
sure.
is certainly odd.
Yes, no, we did not expect it. We wouldn't have put it on the agenda if we knew that this was coming. But I will say that, the Chancellor's Office fully supports the mission of Umoja. We certainly believe in the work that they do, and we have been trying to guide and support the fiscal management of the funds. This body allocates those funds. Just as we discussed earlier, all the other appropriations, we are responsible for ensuring that there is a fiscal manager that can respond to the requirements of the state of California. And so we could not bring this item forward without a fiscal agent,
Well,
but we will be searching for one.
Very good. Fiscal management, obviously, is very, very important. The work of this organization is very, very important too.
Yes.
So let's try to get everybody together and move it forward. If they need additional technical assistance, I'm certain they'll be open to that. Whatever they can do to move the program forward is essential in my mind. Thank you.
Member Anderson?
Chancellor, can I just ask a technical question? In this situation, when somebody does pull, I don't know if it occurs as a newcomer, I'm not aware of sort of the policies and procedures, what happens here. What do we do, either from your office or for the board, if we do have a program that we believe in? Do we then go out and look for another fiscal agent, or how does that actually occur?
Yes. It's very similar to conversations you heard earlier when we had to sole source a contract because there weren't enough competitive bids, there weren't enough colleges or districts who wanted to become a fiscal agent. It's very similar. We will go back out, try to find a district who is willing to work with Umoja and be the fiscal agent. We will try to understand what the problems that Chabot Las Positas had at the end of the day. I can't tell you exactly what those are because I have not had a direct conversation with them, and nor are they here to explain to the board what happened. But we will do a substantial postmortem, but we cannot, again, because of these questions of Prop 98, we cannot be their fiscal agent. There is a possibility, as was mentioned, to become a nonprofit, to work with our foundation. That has been offered in the past, that the Foundation for the California Community Colleges be their fiscal agent. All those options are still open, and we will continue to try to help them find a fiscal agent.
It strikes me that, no, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment. So if we find a fiscal agent as soon as possible, can we have consent via email or some sort of documentation, so we have to wait till the next meeting to approve this? I would like to echo Ms. Shaw's comment about fast tracking this as possible.
Well, I mean, the board would need to take action on the fiscal agent. We could call a special meeting, we can do a number of things to make that happen. But our first step is to find a fiscal agent as quickly as possible who's willing to take this on.
But I would also go back to your point, Chancellor. We'd also like to know for the college to be able to defend their decision so that we can make an informed decision also.
Right.
Was it a technical with a change of the president, or is there some other issue there?
Right. Go ahead, Deputy Chancellor.
I was just going to share our commitment to expedite this process. We learned about this on Friday morning, immediately emailed our board president and vice president. You have our commitment to not only find a fiscal agent, but in the meantime, between now and our November board meeting, to find other solutions. And one may be that our president exercises his authority under the standing orders to move forward a process. But I think a big piece of this specific contract is really finding out what were the prior challenges before we can move forward. So that is the commitment that you have from our staff, that we will figure out what went wrong, since we have very little information since Friday, and then how do we move as quickly as possible for this very important contract.
That's good, very good, thank you. As you can get a sense of the board, this is an urgent priority. I do just want to add, though, this reflects a perfect example of what Member Baum just said about why we have this fiscal agent system that doesn't seem to make a lot of practical sense, and this is a great reason why.
Just a quick question. What are the impacts, since we are going to probably have to delay an action on this till November, what is the impacts on the program statewide? I expect that the programs will continue as planned. They'll be...
Well, I mean, certainly the challenge is that we cannot appropriate the money that was in this year's budget until we have a fiscal agent. That is the primary impact. I mean, the organization can continue to function, but as was mentioned earlier, they were ready to put the money out to the Umoja programs in the field. They cannot do that at this point because we can't appropriate the money.
Right, so I'm trying to draw a picture so that if there was an event that was planned in October, for example, at a specific campus, that may not be able to occur.
I can't speak to that. I think it would be a challenge for any organization to make commitments before money is appropriated, but that could have been possible.
I know that Moja and A2 Amend are having their conference in November.
Mm-hmm.
Statewide
actually
conference.
October.
I don't know if this impacts that, but I know that's happening.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Member Anderson.
Chancellor, is there any way to go ahead and meet that gap? Because if we can't meet until November, is there any way for us to communicate with those that may have problems programmed where they don't have to cancel them and it damage the actual activity?
We can certainly, and I think Deputy Chancellor Gonzalez is already thinking about that, but I'll turn it over to her.
We'd have to consult with our legal counsel, but I think, again, step one is figuring out what went wrong. I think that's our responsibility as an agency and for all of you as board members, and why this fiscal agent would decide to rescind their application. And then two is the troubleshooting. And as I mentioned earlier, you have our commitment to move forward as quickly as possible, including figuring out what events or what campuses are going to be impacted.
Member Haynes.
62. I think there are 62 colleges that are involved with Emoja, so it's a lot of colleges. A lot of people are impacted.
So there are a couple of things. One is that for many of our support programs, the funding comes through the budget item to the Chancellor's office, and then the Chancellor's office sort of acts as a fiscal agent relative to many programs. And so this is a reminder that this $2.5 million didn't get passed that way. It got passed directly to the Emoja problem in terms of not really coming. It's as a program within. What that means is that Umoja is really a contracted program, and so that's part of the challenge, and it's not a challenge that we cannot overcome. It is a challenge that what I would encourage and what I've heard is we've got urgency because our students will be suffering as a result of that. So to the extent that those folks who are involved in Umoja sit down with the Chancellor's office and with legal to figure out what are the challenges. Why has, at the very last minute, a fiscal agent decided not to take on that particular role? We have to figure that piece out so that we can make certain, because this is not, and it was last minute, I give you that, but a fiscal agent, having served in that capacity, if they don't feel comfortable with it, then you really don't want them sort of dealing with the program. The last minute is problematic. But I would just encourage the Chancellor's office, legal, and Umoja to sit down very, very quickly to resolve this, because what we don't want, and what I've heard from my colleagues on the Board of Governors, we do not want students suffering as a result of that.
Okay, I think we ought to wrap this up.
Motion.
Do we need to do this item 2.7 before we vote on these, or can we vote on these now?
So there's two ways. You could hear item 2.7 so that you can have all of the information that you need to vote on item 11, or you could just separate that one out. I leave it up to you.
Let's hear what about item 2.7 and then vote on them all.
I might have to do freestyle here because the PowerPoint doesn't seem to be working. My name is Dr. Lynn Shaw, and I'm the Interim Director of Workforce and Economic Development. I'm very pleased to be here. President Epstein, Vice President Hayes, and Chancellor Oakley. Oh, good, they got it going. Sort of.
Just keep
Okay,
going.
I'm gonna freestyle it. There is a copy in your packet, but essentially, this is an item that you've considered before. It's the Strong Workforce Program, and it's sort of cascaded down to K-12. And I'm going to talk about kind of what it is. So it's linking our successful community college Strong Workforce Program to a program for our K-12 partners. And this is how the money is going to be allocated. It's a little text heavy, but essentially $150 million is going to be administered by our California Department of Education to support all the K-12 institutions. And then $14 million, 12 of that will go to developing regional and statewide coordinators, and then $2 million will go to the region to deal with the administrative cost. It's really expanding the Strong Workforce Program into the K-12 system. And this division of money was decided by the legislation. And the allocation, and this is the all-important, how much money does each K-12 system receive? It's based on sort of a third, regional unemployment, the average daily attendance, which is how K-12 counts their students, and the regional portion of job openings. And we are in the process of getting the allocation model approved by the Department of Finance. And things are really going forward very well. Our California Department of Education partners are working very well with our community college representatives. And if Vice President Hayes wants to add anything, because you've been serving on the advisory board of 3 from the California Department of Education and 3 from the community colleges.
I would, thank you. I would just add, we will in November do a joint presentation to the Board of Governors. I serve as the vice chair, but my counterpart from the State Department of Education, Ting Soon, serves as the chair. And we did a presentation before their board just a week ago, a little over a week ago, and we will do so at the November meeting. But I would say that we have spent the last almost 2 years, the end of this year, working on our principles, our values, and our guidelines. We had an opportunity to have folks from across the state who have these programs, these partnerships with industry and their partnerships with community colleges, and the work that they're doing. And this was in preparation for the federal Perkins grants that have just been reauthorized by the federal government administration. So we're absolutely positioned to begin this work in earnest across the state, and it has been helped by the budget item. It might have been mentioned by the budget item recently approved that allowed some funding to go to K-12 to do this workforce and economic development work on K-12 campuses.
So I have 2 more slides. It is a competitive process, and school districts, county offices of education, charter schools, and regional occupational centers or programs are eligible to apply. And finally, for more detailed information, our website is updated to include information about not only the continuing community college Strong Workforce Program, but the K-12 upcoming Strong Workforce Program. And thank you, Vice President Hayes.
Thank you. Questions?
Okay. But now, before we vote on all these contracts, I would want to ask if any member of the board would like to pull any of these items to be voted on separately. Or is everyone comfortable with doing the whole package? Okay. Okay. Oh.
Can I ask a technical question to your point earlier about the benchmarks? Are you gonna offer up, or is staff gonna come back to us with what those will be, or do we need to go ahead and add something to this action?
No, I think that can be handled just with the staff reporting back to us. And I think they got the message, and so did the grantee. And so we should be able to do that. Member Fong?
You call for a motion, I'll make a motion.
Okay, I'm calling for a motion on everything in item 2.1 and item 2.7.
So move.
Second. Fawn and Rawlings. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. We will move on. There's one other contract item that we does not need a vote, but we wanted to inform you about, and that is item 4.2, the content management system contract approval. Vice Chancellor Feast will explain.
Thank you, President Epstein, Vice President Haynes. This contract is for a new content management system to replace our outdated content management system that supports our agency or Chancellor's Office websites. The current CMS is quite fragile and outdated. This purchase is related to the rebuilding of the Chancellor's Office websites. But even if we didn't rebuild these websites, we would still need an updated content management system. So we interviewed several vendors, went through product demonstrations, did reference checks, and we were unable to get this on the agenda for last month. In the process, the preferred vendor, raised its price in July, and we asked them to honor the old pricing structure. So we approached President Epstein, who had some good questions that we answered, and he exercised his authority under the standing orders to approve this contract, and we are now saving some money.
So any questions about that? I just wanted to say that when they came to me, this is like the first minute I was president of the board. Well, you go and approve this, contract without the board's approval. I was a little reluctant, and I had them come in with a lot of information explaining why this was necessary, and I did become convinced, and we were able to save money, not because they were holding us hostage, but just because they had a pricing schedule that they were about to implement, and it's a little bit of a slow process once we approve a contract for it to get through the state bureaucracy, and if we hadn't done it earlier, it might not have been approved in time to get the discount. So that's how that worked out. Any comments?
Will we see any difference in the website once it's implemented, the CMS?
That's the plan, yes. Yes, our Chancellor's Office website is way past its life cycle, so it's due for an update.
Paul promised me we'd actually be able to find where the Board of Governors are on the website.
Okay, but hold him to that.
You weren't just waiting for Cecilia to exit the stage to bring that.
Okay, back to, as they say on the Judiciary Committee, to regular order here, to item 2.2, the proposed Title V revisions to the distance education regulations.
And for this item, we're turning it over to Executive Vice Chancellor Hope.
Good afternoon,
you
President
for stepping
Epstein,
in.
members of the board, and Chancellor Oakley. I actually have the next three items, and I hope they'll be relatively painless. They are all second readings for regulatory changes. So I'll try to give you a brief explanation for each, and if you'd like to ask questions about each one, I'm happy to support any dialogue that you want to have. You may recall that this item related to distance education was represented at the last board meeting by Dean LeBaron Woodyard, related to some changes that the DTAC committee was recommending around distance education and some of the evolution in teaching practice and also in delivery. One of the things that, if I could walk you through, there are really just three major changes that are being suggested here. So on page 34 and 35, you'll see the recommended language in your packet. The first change that's being suggested is that any portion of an online course, a distance education course, needs to include regular effective contact that not only is between instructor and students, but among students. So that's one of the changes that actually aligns with ACC-JC's recommendations. Those of you who are faculty and staff on this committee know well that when the accreditor comes to your college, one of the things that they do is randomly evaluate individual colleges' websites or learning platforms to see what the depth of interaction has been, not only between instructor and student, but also among students. So we're suggesting this Title V change that reinforces that value. The other thing, too, that's being suggested and recommended on page 35 is that instructors of distance education shall be prepared to teach in a distance education delivery that's consistent with local district policies and negotiated agreements. As this group knows well, we've done a lot of work with the Online Education Initiative to reinforce preparation and support for faculty so that when people engage in this delivery method, that it's just as successful as face-to-face. And so we think these two changes help align with those values and just wanted to make the recommendation to this body that these regulatory changes be made.
Okay.
Can I
Okay.
answer any questions?
I just wanted to note for the record that it says on the agenda item, this is first reading, but it's actually second reading, so.
It is
that's
second
where we,
reading. That's correct.
got to.
And it's listed as an action item, so
Right.
that is second reading.
So any board members wish to comment on this? Okay.
Oh, no, Joe.
Oh, Member Grande.
Thank
You've
you
been
very much.
suspiciously quiet.
Suspiciously. I want to thank Vice Chancellor Hope in pointing out the preparedness to teach in a distance ed environment. It's very, very important that our faculty are prepared for that LMS transition. But at the same time, I also want to note that many of our on-campus faculty need the same level of preparation for web-enhanced courses that are not being delivered in hybrid or online environments, because many of them may be extending past the bounds of what is web-enhanced. And I would hope that this training helps differentiate how supplemental LMS usage is different than online or hybrid usage. And I applaud the inclusion.
Thank you so much.
I too want to applaud the fact that you actually inserted interaction among students, because as an online instructor, the discussion questions that I pose, sometimes I would respond to it, but students actually respond to each other and learning occurs from that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
I'll move the item.
We had a motion.
I'll second it.
We have one speaker card, John Stankus.
Good afternoon, President Epstein, Vice President Haynes, and Chancellor Oakley. I wanted to just share with you that the Academic Senate worked collegially with the Chancellor's office about these regulations. It did go to the spring plenary session and was approved by the delegates from all 114 colleges that this is the direction we needed to go about the distance education regulations. And the OEI has done an awful lot of work about improving the standards and therefore the student outcomes as it relates to the professional development appropriate and for faculty who are teaching in the online environment.
To that point, it is worth noting that change is quite measurable, and what we've seen over time is that the face-to-face success and retention rates compared to online is less than 4% difference at this point. And about 10 years ago, that was about a 10% difference. So we've really seen significant gains, all due to the commitment of the faculty in that professional development. So,
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All approved?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the item is approved. Moving on to the next action item, 2.3, Executive Vice Chancellor Hope.
So this item comes to you again as a second reading. We discussed this, or at least we began the discussion. I believe the governor came in at the same time we were discussing this item the last time. So one of the things that we are working to do, especially in light of AB 705, is really look at what kinds of regulatory barriers are affecting students and affecting colleges in trying to support students better. So one of the things that we've been well aware of is that the regulations governing non-credit and tutoring include a clause about the fact that in order for a college to receive apportionment on tutoring, non-credit tutoring activities, the only way that that can happen is if a student is referred by an instructor or a counselor for an identified student learning need. So essentially what that does is makes it impossible for the college to collect apportionment if a student identifies his or her own need, which I think we would all agree is probably the case a good majority of the time. And we don't want the colleges to be penalized just because students know what their own needs are. We actually want them to be encouraged to pursue help under all circumstances. And we want the colleges to be honored with the apportionment support that goes along with providing that additional service to students.
Okay, we have a one witness who wants to comment.
I'm sorry, are we there yet? Okay, so we have Roy Shabazam.
Good afternoon, President Epstein, Chancellor Oakley, and board members. Thank you for taking the initiative on this item. Again, you've heard this will reduce barriers for students to receive the services that they know they need. Also reduces a paperwork burden so that we can focus on students succeeding. So thanks again for the effort here, and I'd ask for your support on this item.
And then we have John Stanskas.
Just stay here.
Regarding this item, this is consistent with the positions of the Academic Senate. This has been widely discussed throughout the last academic year among the Academic Senate presidents as an important improvement to ensuring access to tutoring for students and improving student success.
Thank you. Do you have a motion?
I move.
You have a comment? I'm sorry.
I move.
Oh, you move, okay.
Yep.
Member
second.
Anderson, Member Fawn, Member Baum.
I just want to know, first off, for my benefit, but I expect others, the how is apportionment awarded for tutoring? How does it calculate it? And then do we have the data that how many students are taking advantage of tutoring, and do we know how many are referring themselves versus referred by faculty or other counselors?
So maybe to work backwards from your last question, Board Member Baum, we don't know how many students refer themselves because the colleges are really tracking the ones for whom they are claiming apportionment. So there's a requirement for them to have tracked that referral, though I can tell you that the colleges are put in a position of having to create a lot of very creative solutions to this problem. I can tell you at my former college, we had a button that we asked every instructor to click that essentially referred every student so that every student got that kind of on paper referral so that we could collect that apportionment. Essentially what the law says about the collection of apportionment for tutoring is that the college must maintain a non-credit supervised tutoring course if they're going to claim this type of apportionment. And then the college needs to log and monitor all of the data for students who are logged into that class, and that it all falls under the auspices of non-credit.
Okay, so it's in essence, you're creating a course, the referral is enrolling students into that course, and then you're calculating that.
Correct.
And getting apportionment based on that. So if I'm a faculty member and I put on my syllabus, take advantage of the tutoring center if you need any work outside the class, but I didn't actually hit the button and a student went because they had a test coming up, that wasn't counted in the.
That would not have been considered technically a referral.
Even though they got the idea for it through a faculty member.
Correct.
This would address that.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, moving on to item 2.4, and I'm going to take the prerogative of not even having a presentation on this one. This is about as routine as it gets. Does any member of the board have any questions about this?
So move.
Okay, Member Anderson, Member Rawlings, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? No? All right, with that, before we jump into the big item
Thank
on
you.
the budget, thank you, Executive Vice Chancellor Hope. Let's take a break, come back around 5 to 3.